Yeah, thanks everybody for joining our webinar about cloudcast optimization. So as we say, how to save up to 40% of your cloudcast without certifying performance. So yeah, my name is Pau Cerdà. I'm one of the co-founders of Outvise. And I'm here today with three other panelists. I'll be the moderator. So let me introduce the team who is joining us. So maybe a few words, and then we start. Nuno, if you want to start, for example, to introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi, I'm Nandrat. I've been working in cloud for many years now, and I'm specialized in high volume applications, extreme volume applications that usually have huge cost, and one simple optimization can reduce a lot of the costs. So that's a bit of my experience. I've been working with this kind of applications for 10 years now. So this is my experience.
Fantastic. You know you're quite experienced in Google, right?
Yes, yes. I'm a Google developer expert in cloud. I'm also a Google champion. And I have a very, very extensive knowledge on Google Cloud.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Cristian, few words?
Yeah, thank you, Paul. My name is Cristian. I'm based in Berlin. I'm specializing in the cost optimization area for AWS mainly, although I more recently started to also work with the other cloud providers. My background is also in the DevOps space, so worked for many years as DevOps engineer, like at companies like Nokia, and then eventually got to move to the cloud and optimizing cloud infrastructure. Afterwards, joined AWS. I was a few years at AWS. Before joining AWS, I was building some tooling for cost optimization, and that tooling kind of opened the door for me to join AWS in a way. And then afterwards, I left AWS, and now I'm freelancing on my own, helping companies reduce their costs.
Yeah, thank you, Cristian. Abdeldjalil,
Yes.
is your chance now.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. So my name is Abdeldjalil. I'm a senior solution architect, expert in Azure. I have 15 years experience working on infrastructures and solutions. I'm a former employee of Microsoft as an account technology strategist, helping customers, organizations to transform to the cloud, optimize their cost and their architectures. Yeah, so I've been working with large organizations on the topic of FinOps for the few last years. So it's becoming a topic more and more as organizations are, not using only one cloud, but multi-cloud and using PaaS services, AI right now. So yeah, it's becoming more and more important to control the cost. And yeah, that's what I'm doing actually.
Yeah, fantastic. So you see, we have a dream team of three top-notch experts in cloud, right? Cristian, ex AWS, Abdeldjalil, ex Microsoft, Nuno, very experienced in Google. I think these are the three main hyperscalers. So let's go to the webinar. First, a few words in Outvise. So we are a network of tech independent consultants, 45,000 experts. We have a digital platform to connect directly clients with companies, and we operate mainly in three geographies. One is the whole DACH region, Middle East, and Spain and the UK. So that's a bit us, and yeah, let's go into a topic. So let me first, Cristian, Nuno, and Abdeldjalil spend few minutes on the topic, and then we start the discussion. So let me give you some data, right, that help us to think. So some data points. First, cloud is becoming an important cost driver of IT. Currently up to 50%, 51% of the spend is spent in infrastructure in cloud. Cloud is getting every day more complex. So we say that 73% of the companies have hybrid infrastructure. So mixing private clouds with public clouds, which makes the whole topics quite complex. So third, cloud is not cheap, right? So we have super advantages like the scalability of the infrastructure, but that comes with a cost, and that's something that has to be thought. Regarding waste, there are several statistics out there. It is thought that around 30%, so 27% of cloud spend is wasted, so it's not used. And on top, apparently budgets are difficult to commit in cloud. So we have this statistic that says that in a budget that are overspent on average by 15% by clients. So that's the reality. And then based on that, we saw a new discipline coming up, right? What Abdeldjalil was saying, which is about FinOps. And FinOps is about understanding the correlation between cloud spend and business return. It's about finance and IT. It's about cultural change in the organization. And it's about understanding not only the technical implications of the decisions, but also the business implications of the decisions. So negotiating discounts, understanding credits, understanding the redundancy of storage, etc. So understanding both the technical and the business side. That doesn't come from free, right? So organizations have to be able to allocate a bit of the budget to understand and to monitor the cloud cost, right? It is thought that 3 to 5% of the overall cloud bill should be spent in that kind of tools, right? And there I give you three data points more. So WPP decreased by 30% the cost of cloud thanks to a FinOps initiative. What I was saying before, right? The Sky Group spent the whole cloud budget in 6 months 2 years ago. And yeah, another data point like Home Depot said that they saved tens of millions of dollars thanks to a FinOps initiative, right? So that's some data points. And now what we would propose is to launch a poll among all the participants to tell us if you think that your company is overspending or not, right? So you have to respond here to the survey, and yeah, we'll see the results. So I don't know how to take this out. Okay. So what let me see how to do. I don't know. Do you see in the screen the pop-up of the cloud spend? Yes. I don't know why not. Okay. So okay, here you have the results. So yeah, now 60% of the people of the webinar think that that they had an overspending, and 40% they don't really know it, right? But 2/3 are saying that yes. So let's see what do we propose in this environment, right? First, you have an environment that when we talk to clients, we found several times that there is a kind of a consultancy or an integrator which has been involved in the whole cloud architecture, and one of the problems that companies have is that these companies might be biased somehow, right? Because they have a kind of a conflict of interest, right? Sometimes their bill depends on that. So that's on one side. On the other side, you also have some challenges internally within within the organization, which is that there are many departments that might incur in cloud cost. Call it a system stack, for example, working on marketing and taking their own decisions. The same might apply to HR, the same to finance. So you have IT in the middle. So you might have cases where not everybody is fully aligned on the objective, right? That's something that we also found talking to companies. So what we do propose is basically the creation of a very small and selected team of experts, which are the experts that are today in the panel, who can quickly produce audits, who can make recommendations, who can set up the proper FinOps culture, the proper FinOps operations, the tools, etc. Right? This is what we propose. This independent team, and this independent team, you already saw it. Basically, it's Nuno, it's Cristian, it's Abdeldjalil, and now what I would propose is to start discussing with them, right? So I will start. I'm stop talking now, and I'll go through the webinar, right? So the first question I have, as I have it you in the screen that I see, I have Nuno in my left hand, and then Abdeldjalil and then Cristian. So maybe I'll go like this, like from left to right. So I'll start with the first question, right? Which are savings, right? I mean, that's an easy. Let's do an easy question, which is, imagine that you start now auditing a company or understanding the cloud cost of a company. Which will be the levers where you would start analyzing or understanding, or what are the typical top three things that you find in your clients? Nuno, for example.
Well, the biggest cost that I've seen in my in the profile of the applications I work with, it's usually processing power, processing and storage. Usually, when a company has a target of migrating their infrastructure to the cloud, they usually tend to make a lift and shift, which is a poor way of migrating to the cloud, because they will not take advantages of the cloud, and the costs will be higher than the one that they have in an on-prem. So this is one of the factors. The lift and shift for me, it's the biggest cost generator. The second one is that the applications usually are migrated with an old architecture, not taking advantages of the tools that the cloud provides, like event-driven microservices with scale to zero, and all that advantages that the cloud gives us. This is I think the second one. But this one, it's pretty huge. In some cases, I've reduced the cost to 90% by changing the way that the application works. As I say, fine-tuning one little piece can have a huge impact on the overall of the application in performance and costs. The third one is storage. Well, of course, we have the right sizing for the machines and all that fine-tuning, but at the broader observation, I think the storage is also has a huge impact for high volume applications, because it's a very we have very terabytes and terabytes of information that people think that when they move to the cloud, they have to make several copies of the information and distribute it among several places, which is not correct, because the cloud provides us redundancy already in their infrastructure if you choose the right pieces to put your data. I think this is, for me, the three phases of cost generation that can have a huge impact on the costs.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Abdeldjalil, some ideas?
Yes. So I would say first thing, it depends on the, let's say, the architecture strategy taken by the business or by the IT. Deciding where, I mean, if they are going with the, infrastructure as a service or platform as a service, or they migrate to microservices, it depends on, many parameters, but the common areas where we can save quick and a lot. First one is it can be very, simple and easy, but eliminating, the unused resources. So there are, in every organization where I go and make a first assessment, I realize that a lot of resources that are not used, So get rid of unused resources. They are consuming, even, a virtual machine that is shut down, you are consuming your disk. The storage is consuming anyway. So that's the first area. Then if we talk about infrastructure, I think right sizing, is very important. We have tools today that can give us, some insights about what is the right size. But I think, right sizing when it comes to infrastructure is very important. But in the case that you are not using infrastructure like VM or cluster, if you're using PaaS services, that's very important as well to monitor your resources. If you are using a SQL database or, Azure function, are you sure that you are using all the, the size that you are allocating to it? If not, you need to go to the monitoring and see if you need to scale or not. That's why auto scaling is very important to implement to any, organization using PaaS services or IaaS as well. I think that there is also one area that sometimes we underestimated, which is the networking. So the bandwidth is very expensive when you have a lot of data coming out, coming out from your cloud. If you are using hybrid infrastructure and you are communicating with your ERP, which is internal, for example, there are a lot of data coming, out from your cloud going to the ERP. So you are paying a lot of bandwidth, and this one needs to be, very well, let's say architected. Make sure that you are not sending a lot of data and using like gateway or something that will help you, optimize a lot. So there are some tricks where sometimes, okay, we see the bill and we see something named like a bandwidth. I say, okay, well, what is bandwidth costing? Like 20K per month? What is going on, And so, yeah, it's very important. The cloud, the network in the cloud is very, tricky. So like if you have a virtual network in West Europe and then another one in Sweden and you communicate between them, it's very expensive. Make sure that your resources are well architected as well. That's the top three I'm thinking about. Yeah.
Understood. Cristian, what do you think about all this
Yeah,
data?
I mean, if I may add from what Nuno and Abdeldjalil said, I can double click on many of those things, like talking about the lift and shift. I mean, I personally don't think lift and shift is a bad strategy, but it has to be followed after a while by an initiative to look again at the costs as the team gets more experience with the cloud. Because when they do the lift and shift for the first time, they are kind of used to the data center. They don't know what this cloud thing is. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have the skills. So I think it's valid to do it, but it has to be followed not so long after, as the team gets skilled into the cloud and more familiar. And I think they have to do a second step of, okay, let's see what we have here, and if it still makes sense to run it at this capacity, and if there are ways to make it more, let's say, cloud. It's not cloud native at that point, but converting it, modernizing it into a cloud architecture. And when it comes to the kinds of resources, I think yeah, compute is always a big, I mean, from most of my customers, it comes around 30 to 50%, some of them even more. Some people buy compute and then run databases on EC2 and stuff like that, even though the recommendation would be to use services like RDS for managing their databases by the cloud provider. So yeah, speaking of databases, I think we didn't mention so much, but besides like the right sizing that Abdeldjalil mentioned, there are, at least in AWS, there are features like this Aurora IO optimized, which is always a tricky configuration that can save you a lot of money, but it can also waste you if you don't use it in a good way. Just recently had a customer that was paying 30K a month on a single database that was getting a ton of IO. And the database itself, the compute part of the database, was costing like less than $1,000, but all the costs was coming from this storage IO. And yeah, basically we looked into if we can convert it to the IO optimized, and it apparently it was no longer needed, so we just shut it down entirely. Like it was even bigger of a change. So yeah, it's sometimes you notice these kind of things when looking at the bill. Compute is also a big thing. In the compute area, one of the things that are often overlooked is the way that you can use in the cloud burstable instances for the low utilization workloads. There are these instances that if you use them below, let's say 20% of the CPU, you pay half the costs. And just recently worked with an Azure customer where all their capacity was at like 5-10% CPU utilization, and we converted it to burstable. And then in the like next step is to looking into the memory size. So basically we are looking into reduction of 75% just by doing the right sizing for that capacity. And that's before doing any capacity commitments like savings plans. So if we stack all these things, you can easily get towards 80-90% savings by just combining these mechanisms of optimization for such workloads. Yeah, I mean, for the storage side, yeah, there are all these storage options that people may not be aware of, or they may misuse them. In AWS, you can have these IO optimized volumes that are great if you have a very tight latency requirements, but cost you like 10 times the price of normal storage. And every single customer that I worked with, if it was big enough, eventually had some of these provisioned, maybe by mistake by a developer, or maybe they at some point needed that kind of performance, but they no longer need it, and they pay thousands of dollars on something that's like not necessary anymore. So yeah, it's a lot of these not so obvious, like it's not really a right sizing, it's a kind of configuration that's suboptimal for the workload. And what has to happen is people have to go and look at these at their costs, look at their infrastructure, maybe doing a regular, like a quarterly or so review to see if the things are still as they should be configured. I mean, it can be more often, but it has to also not interfere with the business. But yeah, from my experience, a regular review is very important.
Yeah.
So I think that's.
Thank you, Cristian. So yeah, I mean we've seen different strategies, right? A lot of commonalities between you the three. Now imagine that you have to set up a FinOps team in an organization, right? I mean, you have maybe a big corporate, and you advise them to have an established team there. What skills would you recommend? What kind of profiles do you think that that people should be? Should be like I know, and now we're gonna start with you, Cristian. Should be somebody like you, and then a controller, and then a finance people together. You should work together with I don't know, somebody who has very experience on cloud on a cloud architect plus a controller. What is your view there?
Yeah, so I think it's hard to find all the skills in a single person. You may have people who know the finance part, but maybe they are not, like, they come from that finance background, but they may not have the technical expertise. Then you may have people like us who come from the technical side, but they would rather stay in their IDE and look at the resources than go and talk to people and like maybe don't have so much of these herding cats kind of mentality of getting people to do the work that needs to be done at scale. So I think in a way we need a pretty rare breed of people who can do all those things, or we can have a mix of multiple people that all of them bring to the table these kind of skills. And yeah, in big organizations, that's what usually happens, because yeah, it's easier to find a few people who come from those areas and bring them together towards the result that the company needs in the cost optimization area. Yeah, I've seen Abdeldjalil, you raised your hand if you want to add anything.
No. It was just it was a small mistake. Yeah.
Okay. No, what's your view, Abdel? Because I understand that there's a real difficulty, right? Because I mean, if finance is so different to cloud architecture, right? That finding a profiles that understand should be quite complex.
I think it's very similar to when DevOps was born. You know, when DevOps was born, it was let's say a marriage between dev people and ops people. You know, it's like infrastructure and developers. Here we are talking about FinOps, which means that we need people from IT, from operations, with experience about automation, but also good knowledge about the cloud that we are talking about. And we need also finance to be involved. It's not only a technical or let's say IT role. So we need both sides to work together. The finance, because they need to be involved and not only receive a bill and then they say, hey, what is going on? IT, you're spending a lot. No, they need to be there from the beginning, understand what is happening, what is the billing. Do we need to do like internal billing to other clients? There are some mechanisms that you can automate. That's why we need IT people. So for me, I think that we need to have a good architect to be in the place. Architect, because the architect would need to architect solutions. Okay, so not just bring resources and then just spend them. We need an architect who is going to provide the best design from technical, functional, but also cost perspective. Okay, not just. That's why we have like architecture boards in many organizations. When you present an architecture, you will be challenged about the cost as well. Okay, so a good architect from technical perspective is good, but we need also, let's say, a cloud, what we call like a cloud engineer or a DevOps with automation experience to automate the policies, make sure that we are not spending a lot, put in place the governance part, the cost, the budget control, like continuous control. I would say every day you have like alerts and things going on to make sure the cost is not overspent. I have seen more and more the role of FinOps manager in large organizations, and FinOps manager is someone who is going really to establish the policies, the procedures, the process, the goals, and alignment between the business and technical. So the FinOps manager will be the one communicating with all the stakeholders. So yeah, basically you need these kind of skills like yeah, so someone with a big vision, and then a good architect, good DevOps, but finance or procurement, because procurement as well could be part of the game, because yeah, basically we need them to manage relationship between cloud vendors, negotiate contracts. When you have like renewal of contracts, let's say I take Microsoft, because I was also working at Microsoft and selling enterprise agreements every day. I mean, every time we have renewal, we have negotiation going on with procurement, and procurement need to understand the technical side, let's say FinOps side, to better negotiate with the vendor as well.
Cool. Thank you, Abdel. Nuno, what some takes on here?
Yeah, well, they pretty much said everything, but one thing that I think it's really important is the constant monitoring of the applications. There should be set alarms, because in some situations, the application that has a new release or a new deploy, and that generates a huge cost, and that can be effectively immediately to take action immediately. So it's good to have a constant monitoring on and have the proper tools. Of course, the cloud architect is also huge, as Abdel already said, and Cristian already said. They're a huge role on the cost savings. It depends on how the application was migrated to the cloud, or if it's a new application that you're putting in the cloud. There should be also blueprints that could help the new applications developers to have a clear view of this kind of application, or this profile of an application can be very easily implemented and could scale and decrease scale to zero and also scale up, reducing the costs and having it to the minimum. One thing that is for certain, there's always room for improvement in all applications. So I think the constant monitoring is a huge impact. So they should have the tool set and the people to monitoring the applications. Okay,
good. Let's move to another topic and dig a bit more on technology. But let me first tell you one story. I was once with a friend of mine who worked in AWS, right? And I said, I asked him, what do you think about FinOps? I mean, do you think that it has future? And he told me, no, there's no future there. Because look, we always put an account manager, and we always make sure that the prices are totally optimized. So we always take care of our customers and try to and make them that they don't overspend, right? So this is what he told me. I guess that this is what they tell to the clients, and it's obvious that they have a conflict of interest there. But I'd like to talk about this, about the role of the account managers of each of the hyperscalers, right? I'm not sure if the name is account managers, but the ones who take care of also of the relationships. I don't know who wants to start. I mean, I said maybe you, Cristian. You can, yeah, say.
Yeah, I mean, I was also working in AWS, and I know the setup. Like you have multiple specialties in the team that works with bigger clients, bigger customers. Some of them do have incentives to drive sales, and there are some of them that have incentives to just give the customer the best possible advice, bringing the perspective of the customer as the main, let's say, like being the advocate of the customer always. And they intentionally put this tension between these people to kind of have them fight each other in the interest of the customer. So they do have this. From what I know, the account manager is the one that has incentive towards sales, and the solution architect is the one that basically should only care about giving the customer the best possible technical advice. Now, what happens is not all account managers are the same, not all solution architects are the same. There's also the technical account manager. So if you pay enterprise support, you get also a technical account manager whose entire purpose is to help customers basically optimize the costs. And there are also like specialized, also other people specialize just in the cost area, like trying to keep the customer happy. But yeah, as you said, there is this conflict of interest. On one hand, getting the customer to trust the cloud provider, but also like the interest in just making money out of that customer as a business, because they are in to make money. So there is always this kind of tension. On one hand, that there is there are things that you can tell the customer how to optimize, but they don't necessarily go as much as possible technically. Like there is no way for, like, most often they don't give the perfect advice because of this this misalignment of incentives. So what I've seen very recently was a situation of a Azure customer that had these VMs running at 5% or so in average. And one of the things that we've seen was that none of those instances were flagged by the right sizing tooling from Azure as a good candidates for right sizing. So basically what I ended up was I ran one of my tools, and that tool discovered 80% of their capacity could be cut in half by doing right sizing, whereas with the cloud provider tooling you couldn't see anything. So this is where very clearly you can see this kind of let's say incentives for them to close an eye and just not give you the best possible advice, even if they have all the metrics they could have.
Abdel, what's your experience with Microsoft?
I think it's funny because it's pretty much similar, but the organization, transformed as well. So when I joined, I joined as a pre-sales. Okay, my role was pre-sales, and my responsibility was to build the roadmap and be a trusted advisor for organizations. When the cloud came in, so Microsoft changed, the strategy internally and externally, and the account managers were, let's say, we're pushed to sell more and more cloud than the old services that we know. However, from the pre-sales perspective, we were responsible of the consumption. So whatever an account manager sell to the client, we need to make sure it's consumed. However, the account manager was not responsible of the consumption. So, which means you can sell whatever. My responsibility was to consume it in the right way. And then it changed, during 2 or 3 years. Then it was aligned between account managers. And now, as we speak today, the account managers are also responsible of the consumption. That's why they push to consume. They don't care about, cutting cost. Let's be honest. An account manager, if you tell him like about FinOps, he doesn't listen. Okay, so he's going to be okay. It's good. We have some tools, but they won't spend so much to help you cut the cost. Okay, it doesn't work. However, that's also something very interesting and important to notice. Today, if you talk about account managers, they say, why are you using compute right now? Why are you using VMs? Go to Kubernetes. Okay, go to Azure functions. No, because they need to move the cost from one service to another, because that's the strategy. Like go to AI, go to data. It has nothing to do with cutting cost. Okay, that's why you need to have internal people working with you, people outside of the vendor, coming and helping you assess and really cut the cost. Okay, and challenge the vendor. That's very important, because if you let the vendor work on your consumption, you will have surprises. So you need to challenge, actually. Yeah. So you need to have people from your side well-skilled to discuss also with the solution architect from the vendor. So to align, yeah.
Yeah. No, with Google.
Yeah, well,
Interview
in
there.
Google, I have, well, in all the clouds, I have great experience working with the engineering teams of each cloud. I've created applications, extreme volumes, as I said before, and they are very demanding and very costly at most of the situations. And they usually use it as a use case to demonstrate the skill of the potential of each cloud. So I've had the pleasure to have a lot of attention of the cloud providers and optimize the applications to the maximum. So I only have good things to say about this, my experience, because they really dedicate to the cause of reducing the cost. Of course, I have experienced applications in the past and other applications that I've worked with, applications that take, for example, 20 hours to make the processor, the validation and the ingestion and processing of data. And I've changed the applications to work on a different way, not using Apache Beam and Dataflow, and using Cloud Functions and Cloud Run, and reducing the costs dramatically. And this is not the typical, if you go to the websites, they usually say use Dataflow for big data. And you say, well, when I'm using Dataflow with external data, the Dataflow will have a lot of I/O, so it will be stuck, and we are paying for the servers being up, so the cost will not be effective. But in the sites, they all say use big data tools, but in reality, the cost is much reduced if you use Cloud Run and Cloud Functions in the case of GCP. But the cloud providers always supported me on my decisions on the architecture, and we've made a lot of POCs with the engineering teams, with Lambdas and AWS, and also I've worked with the Postgres team on Azure as well. So I have very good experience, but I work on the design. I work more on the design of the application and the optimizing of the application at the starting point. Okay. So it's been good, very good experience.
So another topic. So lately we've seen the whole thing of Trump, right? About the tariff, etc. And my question is, to what extent now there is a change, or you felt the change within the clients to what's called cloud sovereignty? So to what extent you've seen that clients are pursuing now that the whole cloud, the whole data is managed within the political borders of the region that you are operating, right? I don't know if that's a topic that you have seen, or still it's not in the decision makers, that kind of questions. I don't know, Nuno, if you want to start there.
Well, all the services that I usually work with are Europe-based, so I haven't yet seen any impacts. Of course, there are some pieces of the infrastructure, like the global load balancers and all that global infrastructure that are supported by the US data centers, but I haven't seen yet an impact.
Okay. Abdel, any issue there?
I mean, I have seen changes coming more and from the first, investiture of Trump than this one.
Yep.
The first time Trump, it was like in 2016, if I remember well. I have seen all the clients, panicking, getting the data off US and trying to use, for example, European data centers, because Trump said all the data that is part of an American cloud provider belong to America, and that's why I have seen a lot of clients coming back from the cloud, migrating data. But for this one, the clients I'm working with are expecting, the cost to be higher. That's why they insist on the FinOps part. They say, okay, we are so much in deep in the cloud that we are not thinking about coming back on premise, but we need to optimize as much as possible,
Yeah,
That's the move I seeing.
understood.
Yeah.
Cristian, anything on your side?
Yeah, I can see kind of the same thing. So customers panicked when there was this news about tariffs and like their costs will increase and whatever. So there was this push towards cost optimization, at least immediately after the news broke up. And yeah, like I haven't yet seen things like moving out of the cloud. I think that's kind of a big change that would have to happen. But there was this push of, okay, how much are we spending? Are we spending the right amounts for what we should be spending, and so on. Yeah, so that's what I've seen so far. But I kind of more work with US companies. So from my background, it could be a bit biased towards that. So from within the US, I haven't seen any of that. Yeah.
Okay, maybe we could switch to some Q&A from the audience. So would you mind? I have one question here. How do you manage to convince buyers to invest in FinOps? Are you wait a second? Let this move. Go here. How do you convince buyers to invest in FinOps? Are you going first with cost reduction or another approach? So he's asking about the whole the approach. How do you talk to clients? You directly go to the cost, straight to the point. Abdel, you want to start here, or Cristian? Yeah, say.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I think first step is when we approach the client, we propose to have an assessment. Okay, so assessment is not too long. We have the tools prepared, so we go there, we make an assessment, and we come with let's say a list of actions, quick wins. What are the top 3 things to do, and the remediation plan for long term, and then we explain to the client. We present like the approach, and yeah, we see the numbers. If the numbers are really high, everything makes sense to the client. Then if the client agrees, so we start working on optimizing the cost, starting by the quick wins and then going deeper in more like architecture things. But yeah, that's basically the approach.
Okay, let's go for another question. We are using both Azure and AWS. What is the best way to centralize cost visibility across providers without investing in expensive third-party tools? I don't know who wants to respond here, AWS or Azure.
I can take this one. Any kind of cloud provider gives you some basic tools that are for free, and if you want free, it's kind of the main option. Any commercial tools in this space that cover multiple cloud providers tend to have a cost associated. One thing that I've seen was this AWS tool for dashboards, like the Kudos Cloud Intelligence Dashboard. They, if I'm not mistaken, recently added support for some Azure visibility, but to be honest, I haven't yet checked that out. I just know it exists. So there are efforts towards that, but then again, that tool per se is free of charge, but it generates some costs because it provisions some let's say not so cheap, like it is kind of cheap, but it's not free.
Okay.
Capacity that is required to see those dashboards and to update and run those. I mean, it can add up at scale if you run it on a large organization, but yeah, it's almost cost free.
Okay, maybe next one. Maybe it's Nuno. The next one. Have you seen AI tools like AWS cost anomaly detection or Gemini actually catch savings opportunities that you once missed?
Yeah, I can speak about GCP. So yes, Gemini can capture cost savings. Usually, it's easy to see in pre-production environments because you can see directly the optimizations that you can make on that environment, because it has usually it's over-dimensioned, and because it's dimensioned for the peak, and it's not used. So Gemini can really help optimizing the costs. I don't know about AWS cost anomaly detection, but Gemini, I know when it works.
Okay. And any other take, Abdel or Cristian?
For AWS, regarding the cost anomaly detection, I haven't yet seen a customer that actually uses it. So I tend to use it as part of my work, but I also know a lot of these things. So it's not like it knows things that I'm missing. I just use it as part of my work. But the customers that I worked with haven't been using it before. So yeah, I guess that not sure how valuable this answer is, but that's just my experience.
Okay. I don't know if there are more questions from the audience.
There's one more from Leo.
There is one. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
I can answer this one.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Leo, for the question. I've been dealing with startups. I had a startup myself, and I use the cloud to bring a B2B solution. I think the most important for a startup is to go with cloud native solutions, use as much as possible services like Azure Functions or AWS Lambda, go with microservice and right size everything. Okay, I mean, make sure you don't overuse, resources. Use also the native cost optimization tools. If you go to Azure, you have Azure Cost Management. AWS, you have the same. Use the budgets and the cost. I mean, the budget features to control your cost. Put the alerts to make sure you don't, spend a lot. And finally, I think for a B2B SaaS solution, think about multi-tenancy from the beginning. Okay, build the multi-tenant SaaS, separate, your client environments, and so that you can know exactly what each client is spending from your resources. That's very important.
Okay.
If I may add something, one of the things that I can add is to never forget that you can ask for credits from the cloud providers. They sometimes tend to be very generous, and they can go a long way, especially when you're small. If they give you a few thousands, then you're just running functions and small containers, whatever, it can last a lot of time. So you can run basically for free. But it's always a double-edged sword. So when you go and get these things, you tend to overeat, if I can call it like this. So you have to pay attention, don't forget that you're still generating costs, even if you're not paying it immediately. So be mindful of the capacity that you actually need, and try to avoid the situation where you burn those credits only to end up in a completely, like a massive mess that you could have avoided by optimizing things as you go, instead of having a completely massive oversized setup when the credits run out and you have to pay with real money. Yeah, I think that's basically my tip for credits.
Okay, so let me just share one slide. So I think that we make it very visible, right? How important it is to have a team like Nuno, like Abdel, like Cristian, supporting you with super deep experts, with people who have worked in the companies before. Nuno, you wanted to say something? Sorry.
Yeah, there's a new question on the chat.
Oh, okay. Haven't seen that. Can you read that?
Yes, I think it's easy to see what can be optimized, where the spending goes. Changing the infrastructure and having specialists to do so without disruption and downtime is difficult. Does a FinOps specialist is also an ops who is performing the needed changes? How does it is based on experience? Well, I can answer that if you don't mind.
Sure.
Well, from my experience, the FinOps team is a completely separate team from the project itself. My experience is, for example, the companies with 4,000 applications. The FinOps personnel doesn't have the ability to change all the applications, but they monitor and they recommend some changes. And after that, they request for the cloud architect for that application, or the technical lead of the application, to explain the costs and what can it be done to mitigate that costs. And that's usually how it works. So, and it's created a roadmap to do those optimizations. And then the FinOps will have control points of milestones of optimization to see the costs reducing, and they also mitigate the failures of the optimizations, because sometimes they fail. So I think it's a more monitoring and hovering position than the hands-on position on the application.
Okay.
That's my experience.
Thanks, Nuno. So I think we've almost consumed 1 hour. So I would leave the webinar here. I want to thank you the three, right, for participating in the webinar. To thanks Nuno, to thanks Abdel, to thanks Cristians, right? And what I was saying, really we think that that an independent team can make the difference, right? And yeah, and to count on us if you have a need like that. So thanks everybody, and yeah, and I hope to see you again pretty soon. Thank you very much. So we disconnect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.